Melancholic piano music fades in as clips of Emma and Nathan laughing and walking hand-in-hand play. But behind the perfect smiles and tender moments, there were secrets. Nathan's phone buzzing, Emma glancing at it suspiciously. What happens when the truth shatters everything you believed in? Emma discovering messages on Nathan's laptop, her hands trembling, tears streaming down her face. I wasn't the only one. There were others. Lies layered upon lies. And yet he acted like nothing was wrong. Sophie showing Emma the messages and photos, both women sitting together, sharing their pain. But heartbreak can lead to strength. Emma boxing up Nathan's belongings, smiling at her painting in a gallery, walking confidently through a park. I found something greater than his lies. I found myself. Emma walking away from Nathan in the park, her face calm as he looks on helplessly. Uplifting orchestral music swells. In the end, the greatest love story is learning to love yourself. This isn't just a story about heartbreak. It's a story about resilience, self-discovery, and letting go of what doesn't serve you. Text on screen, coming soon. I thought he loved me until I discovered his lies. Emma watching the sunset, peaceful and smiling, as the screen fades to black. Emma always believed in love. Growing up in a quiet countryside town, she had dreamed of finding someone who would cherish her unconditionally. So when she met Nathan at a friend's party, it felt like fate. Nathan was charming, confident, and had this effortless way of making her feel like the only person in the room. From the very first conversation, Emma felt an inexplicable connection with him. Their love story seemed perfect. Nathan would surprise her with flowers, take her on long drives under the starlit sky, and listen to her dreams with a look that made her feel truly seen. It wasn't long before Emma began to imagine a future with him. She often thought to herself, this is it. This is the kind of love they write songs about. But little things didn't add up. Nathan rarely talked about his past, brushing off her questions with vague answers like, it's nothing worth talking about. He always avoided introducing her to his friends, saying, they're not really your kind of people. Though these moments gave her pause, Emma convinced herself that every relationship had its mysteries, and what mattered most was how Nathan made her feel in the present. One evening, Nathan invited Emma to a fancy dinner at a secluded restaurant, unlike their usual casual hangouts. As they sat at a candlelit table, Emma couldn't help but notice how distant he seemed. His phone kept buzzing, and each time he'd glance at it before slipping it back into his pocket, his jaw tightening slightly. Everything okay? Emma asked softly, trying to read his expression. Nathan smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Just work. You know how it is. Emma wanted to believe him. She didn't want to ruin their perfect evening by pressing further, so she let it go. But the gnawing feeling in her chest refused to settle. That night, as they walked to his car, Nathan received yet another call. This time, he stepped away to answer it. Emma watched from a distance as his tone shifted. It was sharp, almost panicked. She caught fragments of his conversation. No, not yet. I'll handle it. Don't tell her. Her heart raced. Who was he talking about? What was he hiding? And why couldn't she shake the feeling that the person he was talking about was her? When Nathan returned, his smile was back, as if nothing had happened. Shall we? He asked, opening the car door for her. Emma nodded, but the warmth she once felt was now clouded by doubt. Something wasn't right, and she needed to find out what it was. As they drove into the night, Emma made a silent vow. I will discover the truth, no matter how much it hurts. The following days were a whirlwind of emotions for Emma. She tried to act normal around Nathan, but her mind kept replaying the fragments of his phone call. Don't tell her! The words echoed like a haunting melody, fueling her suspicion. She couldn't ignore it anymore. Something was definitely wrong. One afternoon, while Nathan was at work, Emma decided to confront her doubts. She went through old photos and messages on her phone, looking for anything she might have missed. But everything seemed perfect. Too perfect. Nathan was always careful with his words, never leaving a trace of anything that felt out of place. But then she remembered his laptop. Nathan had once shared the password with her, casually mentioning it when she needed to print something. Would it still be the same? Emma hesitated, her heart pounding. This wasn't who she was. She wasn't the kind of person who snooped, but the need to uncover the truth overpowered her guilt. She opened his laptop and typed the password, "Always us." Her hands trembled as the screen unlocked. At first, everything seemed ordinary. Work files, emails, and photos of their time together. But then a folder caught her attention. It was buried deep within other folders and labeled innocuously, "Miscellaneous." Emma clicked on it, and what she found left her breathless. The folder contained dozens of photos and messages from another woman. They weren't just casual photos. They were intimate, smiling selfies, beach trips, even a picture of Nathan kissing her on the cheek. Emma's chest tightened as she scrolled further, her vision blurring with tears. The messages were even worse. "Can't wait to see you tonight," one read. "I missed you so much last weekend." "Wish you didn't have to leave," said another. The dates on the messages overlapped with times Nathan had told Emma he was working late or out with friends. It was undeniable. Nathan was living a double life. Emma slammed the laptop shut, her breath shallow and uneven. Her mind swirled with questions. Who is she? How long has this been going on? And how could he do this to me? She paced the room, anger and heartbreak surging through her veins. Part of her wanted to confront Nathan immediately, to throw the laptop in his face and demand answers. But another part of her, the quieter, more cautious side, told her to wait. She needed more than an emotional outburst. She needed the whole truth. Later that evening, Nathan came over, greeting her with his usual charm. "Hey, love," he said, leaning in for a kiss. Emma froze but forced herself to act normal. She smiled faintly, hiding the storm brewing inside her. "How was work?" she asked, her voice steady despite the lump in her throat. "Same old," Nathan replied casually, kicking off his shoes. "What about you? Did you do anything interesting today?" Emma hesitated, her heart screaming to confront him, but instead she forced a smile and said, "Nothing much. Just thinking about us and our future." She watched his reaction carefully, but Nathan only nodded, his smile never wavering. But Emma knew better now. Beneath his charm was a man wrapped in lies, and soon those lies would unravel. Emma's resolve hardened as the days went by. She couldn't let Nathan's lies continue, but she also couldn't confront him without understanding the full extent of his betrayal. So, she decided to play along, pretending everything was normal while quietly gathering more evidence. One evening, as Nathan slept soundly beside her, Emma carefully slipped out of bed. His phone was on the nightstand, and for the first time, her curiosity outweighed her guilt. Her hands trembled as she picked it up. She entered the same password as his laptop, "Always us," and it unlocked. Her heart sank when she saw a string of unread messages from someone named Sophie. The conversation was devastating. "Missed you today. Can't wait for our weekend getaway. Thinking about you. Hope she doesn't suspect anything." Emma's stomach churned. She scrolled further, reading months of messages that painted a picture of Nathan's double life. Sophie wasn't just another woman. She was part of a life Nathan had carefully hidden from Emma. There were photos of them at fancy restaurants, trips to places Nathan had never mentioned, and sweet nothings that now felt like daggers to Emma's heart. Her chest tightened as she saw a message from earlier that day. "I'll tell her soon. Just need to find the right time." Emma put the phone down, her breath shallow and rapid. "Tell me soon? Tell me what? That he's been seeing someone else this entire time?" The weight of the betrayal was unbearable. She felt foolish, angry, and heartbroken all at once. The next morning, Emma couldn't hold back any longer. As Nathan sat at the kitchen table, sipping his coffee, she placed his phone in front of him and crossed her arms. "Who's Sophie?" she asked, her voice steady but cold. Nathan froze, the mug halfway to his lips. His eyes darted to the phone and back to her, a flicker of panic crossing his face. "What are you talking about?" he asked, feigning innocence. "Don't lie to me, Nathan," Emma snapped, her voice rising. "I saw the messages. I know about the photos. I know everything." Nathan set the mug down slowly, his expression shifting from panic to resignation. "Emma, I can explain," he said, his tone pleading. "Explain," she scoffed, tears welling up in her eyes. "Explain how you've been lying to me for months, how you've been living a double life, how you've been making me feel like I'm the only one while you've been with her." Nathan sighed, running a hand through his hair. It's not what you think, he began. Then what is it, Nathan? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been playing both of us. Emma shot back, her voice trembling with emotion. Nathan hesitated, as if searching for the right words. I didn't mean for this to happen, he said quietly. I care about you, Emma. I really do. But things got complicated. Complicated? Emma repeated, her voice dripping with disbelief. You call lying to me, sneaking around, and cheating complicated? Do you even hear yourself? Nathan reached out to touch her arm, but Emma pulled away. Don't, she said firmly. You don't get to act like the victim here. I never wanted to hurt you, Nathan said, his voice breaking. I didn't know how to end things. Emma stared at him, her heart breaking all over again. You didn't know how to end things, she echoed. You had every chance to be honest with me, but you chose to lie, over and over again. The room fell silent, the weight of the truth hanging heavily between them. Emma felt like the air had been sucked out of the room, leaving her breathless and empty. She had loved Nathan with everything she had, and now she was left with nothing but shattered trust and unanswered questions. I can't do this anymore, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. I deserve better than this, better than you. Nathan opened his mouth to speak, but Emma held up a hand. Save it, she said, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. You've said enough. With that, she turned and walked out the door, leaving Nathan sitting alone at the table, his world crumbling around him. Emma spent the next few days in a whirlwind of emotions. The pain of Nathan's betrayal lingered, but beneath it was a growing sense of clarity. She realized she hadn't just lost Nathan. She had lost herself in trying to hold on to a relationship built on lies. It was time to rebuild her life, starting with rediscovering who she was without him. She packed up the small things Nathan had left behind in her apartment and boxed them away. Each item felt like a piece of the life they had shared, but instead of breaking down, she reminded herself that letting go was the first step toward healing. She wasn't just saying goodbye to Nathan, she was saying goodbye to the version of herself that had stayed silent and ignored the warning signs. A week later, Emma decided to focus on the things she loved. She revisited old hobbies, painting, volunteering at the local animal shelter, and reconnecting with friends she had drifted away from. With each passing day, she felt lighter, stronger, and more herself. But as much as she tried to move on, the thought of Sophie lingered in her mind. Did she know about me? Was she just as blindsided as I was? Emma wrestled with the idea of reaching out to her, not to confront her, but to find closure. After some deliberation, she sent Sophie a message. It was short and to the point. Hi, Sophie. This is Emma. I know about you and Nathan. I think it's important we talk. Sophie replied within minutes. Emma, I had no idea about you. Can we meet? There's something you should know too. The meeting took place at a quiet cafe on a rainy afternoon. Emma spotted Sophie immediately. She was everything Emma had imagined, poised, confident, and undeniably beautiful. But as Sophie greeted her, Emma noticed the same sadness in her eyes that she had seen in her own reflection. I'm so sorry, Emma, Sophie began, her voice trembling. I had no idea Nathan was seeing someone else. He told me he was single, that he had been for years. Emma nodded, her heart sinking. He said the same to me. I thought he loved me. Sophie sighed, stirring her coffee absent-mindedly. He's a master at hiding the truth. I found out about you by accident. I saw your photo on his phone one day when he wasn't looking. When I confronted him, he brushed it off, said you were just a friend. But I knew something was off. Emma's chest tightened. How long were you two together? Almost a year, Sophie admitted. But it wasn't just us, Emma. There was someone else too. Emma's stomach dropped. What do you mean? Sophie pulled out her phone and showed Emma a series of screenshots, messages, photos, and details of another woman Nathan had been involved with. Her name is Claire. I found out about her a few weeks ago. That's when I ended things. Emma stared at the evidence, a mix of anger and disbelief washing over her. Nathan hadn't just lied. He had built an entire web of deception, playing multiple women and breaking all their hearts in the process. For the first time since she had discovered the truth, Emma felt a sense of solidarity. She and Sophie weren't rivals. They were victims of the same man's selfishness. They spent hours talking, sharing stories, and piecing together the timeline of Nathan's lies. By the end of the evening, they both felt an odd sense of closure. "We're better off without him," Sophie said as they parted ways. "We deserve so much more than what he gave us." Emma nodded, a faint smile forming on her lips. "You're right, and I think it's time we both start fresh." Over the next few weeks, Emma focused entirely on herself. She threw herself into her work, joined a yoga class, and even signed up for a painting exhibition at a local gallery. Each day felt like a small victory, a step closer to reclaiming her happiness. One afternoon, as she walked through the park near her apartment, she spotted Nathan sitting on a bench, looking disheveled and lost. He saw her and stood up, his face lighting up with a mix of hope and regret. "Emma," he called out, walking toward her. She stopped in her tracks, her heart pounding. Part of her wanted to hear what he had to say, but a stronger part of her knew she didn't owe him anything. "I'm sorry," Nathan began, his voice breaking. "I know I don't deserve it, but I just need you to know that I regret everything. I was selfish, and I hurt you. I'll never forgive myself for that." Emma looked at him, her expression calm but resolute. "You're right, Nathan. You don't deserve my forgiveness. But I forgive you anyway. Not for you, but for me. I'm not carrying your mistakes with me anymore." Nathan's eyes filled with tears, but Emma didn't waver. She turned and walked away, her head held high, leaving him and his lies behind for good. That evening, as Emma sat by her window, watching the sunset, she felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in a long time. She had loved, she had lost, but she had found herself again. And in the end, that was the greatest victory of all. The end.